Howdy y'all, I got the Bulldog on the channel. I just got home a few minutes ago. It's, I don't know, 7:30, quarter to 8. And I had one out here, customer dropped off Friday, I believe. And yeah, it had issues. I had stuff going on all weekend long. There is no vacation really for a mechanic. They usually always have work if they want work, and sometimes when they don't. But complaint on this one, it's a uh, '02 Chevy S-10, pretty common vehicle. Complaint was blower motor inoperative intermittently, and none of the lower speeds work. High worked, but none of the lower speeds. So I immediately thought, oh, blower motor resistor. Yeah, they're always bad. Well, when the vehicle got here, I realized, oh, this is the one I've worked on before. Well, everything worked when it left. What in the world? And then I remember, oh, wait a minute. There was a broken relay on that thing, but everything worked, so I didn't mess with it. Guess what was wrong? This is the blower motor relay. When there's no power going to it, it's normally closed. It means the center pole contacts one of these side poles, so power goes through this relay all the time. That's what goes through the resistor. That runs all your lower speeds. When you turn it to high, it energizes one of these pegs up here, and well, actually one of them will already be energized, the other one will be switched by ground by the computer, and it switches it to a different pole which goes directly to battery power. That way it gets full 12 volts, it doesn't go through any resistors, and it doesn't burn up the resistor. They used to try to put the power through the resistor by just going in and out, and it would always burn up, so they put a relay on it. That's smart. But they hook it directly to the battery, hot at all times. That's stupid. Because if this relay was to stick on, shut the key off, walk away, your blower fan's still running. And runs your battery down. Seen it several times. The newer they get, the worse they get, because they have these relays on them. When it gets one step newer from this relay is actually part of the blower motor resistor. And they call it a blower motor module. Not a big computer, but it's got a circuit board instead of contacts. It's got the resistors in it. And this relay, part of the board, instead of having a mid-priced relay for an electronic component, like maybe $5, it's part of a circuit board soldered in so that you got to pay $100. That's progress. So I killed two birds with one stone on that one. That was, the blower motor intermittent. I turned it on and to the lower speeds, and I went over there and just thumped this thing, and it went to running. Cool. Messed around with it, turned it to high, messed around with it, quit. Okay, cool. This is all of my problem. It shouldn't be the motor. That's not saying it's not going to be a motor, but this is obvious. We'll fix this, and hopefully that takes care of everything, because the power for the high speed does go through this. And as you can see, it has issues. Now, second complaint, four-wheel drive doesn't work. Light lights up on the dash, no engagement on the truck, which, that can be very upsetting whenever you're down 10 buck two and ignore your better judgment and think that you can make it, and you can't. Well, I don't know what prompted them to find out. Hopefully they're not too upset. But I wanted to show you this. I assumed it was going to be the actuator. I checked the lines going back to the transfer case. One of them was almost pinched, and between the body and a fuel line, I moved it around. I looked at the actuator with a mirror and I couldn't tell anything, because guess what? They mount it underneath the battery. It sits down in here. Like this. Isn't that convenient? I mean, really. They couldn't poke me in the eye in person, so there you go. But you can see this rubber here is all shiny. It's also very soft and stretchy. Now I reached in there and I can pull on this cable. I can feel the front axle actuating, shifting into four-wheel drive. So here's the second really smart thing. You need to test this. Okay. In order to test this, you need the motor running. Battery. Really? What I did is I pulled it out, and I pulled this thing up here like this, and as you can see, here's the hot wire. Now this hose and cable, one went on one side of the battery cable, one went on the other side of the battery cable. That's just for my convenience. So I unwound it, got it up here like this, and you'd think that that hole would be big enough to slip a battery down into, but it is not. It hits right here. It hit on the little locks for the headlight, which I took them off, got them out of the way, and I moved things around here. I took a bungee and held that four-wheel drive actuator over out of the way. It was kind of a nightmare, but I was able to finally maneuver things around enough to get the battery brought down in here. Hook the battery cables up without being in danger of sparking. Fire it up, come around here. I shifted it into four-wheel drive inside. I come around here and felt of the bellows in this, and it felt like they were trying to actuate, but not by much. So I took off the vacuum line that feeds it, and it had a good vacuum there. And I plugged it into the actuator. Nothing. It's not even trying, really. Which, it doesn't surprise me. I figured when I saw that soft rubber that it was split somewhere and sucking in vacuum, and it couldn't build enough vacuum to pull it in gear. These are very common problems. Bad relay, that's not so much a common problem, but this actuator, because most of the time the actuator goes bad due to corrosion dripping out of a bad battery. Since they couldn't find any other place on this vehicle to put this thing, we're going to put it underneath the battery. Well, it is what it is. I got it out. I got it tested. I know the actuator's bad. So we'll get some parts tomorrow and hopefully have him back on his way. Now, I will take this actuator off and double check some. Well, nope, there. Right there. Looky there. It's split. Did you see it? Because I can't see where I'm showing you. I'm just guessing. Right there. It's all split out. Okay, hopefully I showed you that. But there's, oil everywhere. Anytime there's a hose or something that blows, it blows stuff all over the place. It's a bad place to put something. You don't put things like that down low, because they get destroyed. And I mean, these are repeat failure items. Ask any mechanic that has had to do these things. They usually have to do several. The longer you keep your vehicle. I mean, I had a Blazer some years ago, and I put 2 or 3 of them on it. And we rarely used the 4-wheel drive, but it didn't matter. It sat down there underneath the battery and got corrosion and salt and any contaminant that you can figure on. Another thing that makes these things go bad is there's a switch in the transfer case. I don't see anything in this vacuum hose. Down in there. It appears dry to me. Something that also causes this problem is there's a switch. When the push the buttons on the dash, that doesn't automatically do everything. When the button gets pushed on the dash, the transfer case has a little electric motor that locks it in. When that little electric motor locks in the transfer case, it has a little detent switch, detent meaning a little button with a spring in it. It pushes that, it's screwed into the side of the transfer case, and it pushes on that, which changes the vacuum port in a little bitty switch and shifts vacuum to go to this hose that actuates the front axle and locks the front axle in. Well, if that detent switch, if the seal inside of it goes bad, it can leak transmission fluid, or transfer case fluid, up all the vacuum lines. And it'll eventually work its way up into the actuators. You wouldn't notice anything other than maybe a slight smell out the exhaust, a little bit of smoke, puff, puff, smoke. It might only leak when it's in 4-wheel drive. It might only leak when it's in 2-wheel drive. It might leak all the time. It's just going to do whatever it feels like doing. So that's something to watch. You know, you got to pay attention when you're taking stuff apart. If you see oil run out of it, that's a bad thing, really bad. So you might end up having to check that switch and maybe put a switch in it. Somebody has been down there and they have made a mess. But I have switched vacuum here, so I'm going to leave all that alone. If they want it fixed, they'll ask me to fix it. You can, go a little bit further, but you have to watch how far you go, because sometimes people just want the only thing is wrong fixed. You can give them your advice, but there's a lot of times when you just need to, leave it alone. Like, comment, subscribe, hit your little bell notification, share it all around, use the little buttons down there, and we'll talk at you later.